Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, especially this week when we're talking about AEW. This week has been one of the biggest weeks in AEW's history, even though officially we don't really know that much about the potential signings of Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, but reportedly both men are at least having talks to come into the company. One deal is maybe closer than the other. But let's start off talking about CM Punk. We mentioned him there, and CM Punk is obviously having a little bit of fun when it comes to teasing that he may be about to return to professional wrestling and return to Inside the Squared Circle for AEW via his latest Instagram story. Now, it appears CM Punk is playing into these AEW rumors and not denying the reports he has been in talks to return to pro wrestling, with AEW being the most likely destination for the former WWE champion. Now, earlier on Thursday, Punk took to his Instagram story to post a clip of the song Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. Now, what does all that mean? Where are we going with this? Well, I'll tell you. The song was popularly used by the Chicago Bulls during the Michael Jordan era. The Bulls continue to use a remix version of the song for the starting lineup introductions at the United Center. Now, where does that come from? Well, the song, as I mentioned, was featured for the Chicago Bulls during the Michael Jordan era. It was also featured on The Last Dance, which of course was a documentary series highlighting Michael Jordan's time with the Chicago Bulls. So, where am I going with this one? Well, I'll tell you. Because AEW has recently filed to trademark the phrase "The First Dance," which, as I mentioned, is a possible offshoot of Last Dance, the title of the 2020 ESPN docuseries on Jordan's final season with the Chicago Bulls. So put these pieces together. And it is a bit of a reach. I'm totally with you. I know some people might be rolling their eyes at this one. Now, yes, it might be a bit of a reach. I'm with you there. I know that he posted a clip of this theme that we associate with The Last Dance. AEW files to trademark The First Dance, which is an offshoot of The Last Dance, all that kind of stuff. But is that too much of a reach? I don't think it is. I think Punk is certainly playing into what people are talking about right now. Punk's post has now fueled the speculation among fans that the former WWE champion is set to return to pro wrestling. He could be appearing at AEW All Out, because where is AEW All Out? Of course, AEW All Out on September 5th is in CM Punk's hometown of Chicago, the Chicago Bulls, The Last Dance, the song, The First Dance. All of those pieces, when you put them together, they add quite a bit of weight to this story. Now, it could just be CM Punk trolling. I'm with you there. It could be CM Punk just trolling. And maybe he's just, capitalizing on this story. He's not outwardly coming out and denying it. He's not outwardly coming out and confirming it, because why would he? But it's very interesting. And it should be noted that neither AEW nor CM Punk themselves have confirmed or denied any of these rumors. So it certainly is very interesting. And look, does it mean a lot? Who knows? Maybe it is a bit of a reach. Maybe it is CM Punk just trolling. But as time goes on, and I know this is a story that only broke, a couple of days ago. It's Friday now. I think it broke Wednesday before Dynamite. Same with the Daniel Bryan story as well. The issue is that we're about 48 hours removed from this, and nobody's coming out and outwardly saying, no, that's not true. If it was a made-up story, and I know people go, because when we spoke about this before on the channel, some people were going, well, it's speculation, you never know, all that kind of stuff, and that's true. I'm with you. But whether it comes to CM Punk or whether it comes to Daniel Bryan, initially, reputable sources are reporting this. That's one thing. But two, nobody's coming out and saying, nope, not true. I've spoken to my sources and they say it's BS. I've spoken to this person, they say it's BS. Nobody's coming out and saying that. From both sides of the aisle here. People within AEW, they're not coming out and saying, nope, not true. People within WWE are saying, well, when it comes to Daniel Bryan, we haven't heard anything about him for months. And he's not listed on anything. We think he's going to sign with AEW. Same with CM Punk. Even people in WWE going, we don't think he's going to come back. We think he's going to AEW. All of this, and again, I know that a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when we make these comments, but it's true. This is a game changer. Both signings, either one would be a big deal, but both signings is a game changer for me. And again, I know it's not the same. Trust me, I know it's not the same. But it is like Hogan and Savage going to WCW in the mid-90s. Yes, they were maybe bigger stars, but you're looking at the two biggest free agents out there right now. Daniel Bryan, he's coming off of WWE TV. He main evented WrestleMania this year. CM Punk, one of the biggest stars in the past decade. a guy that people thought was done, and he has a huge cult following. It's in his entrance theme, cult of personality, but that's true. In Chicago, I mean, this would be really historic stuff, and Punk's leaning into it, and I think the pieces are there. I think if you start to dot things up, you can come to your own conclusion. But as I mentioned, he's posting that song. It's associated with the Chicago Bulls. He's from Chicago. Then AEW filed to trademark the first dance. I mean, all of those bits start to add up there. So I don't know. Maybe it is a reach, maybe it isn't. But it's certainly very interesting. Now, speaking of Daniel Bryan, we have some extra details when it comes to Daniel Bryan and how his deals come together with AEW. Now, on Wednesday night, it was reported by Bodyslam.net. They exclusively broke the story that former WWE champion Daniel Bryan is, quote, locked in and has already signed with AEW. They also reported that as of Wednesday afternoon, the tentative plan in place for Bryan Danielson's AEW debut was to happen at the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite from Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York City on September 22. Additionally, the report stated that Bryan had asked for less dates for comparable money to WWE, which AEW gave him, and also the ability to work in Japan specifically for New Japan and have creative input in his character, all of which demands, requests, whatever you want to call them, were given to him by AEW. Now, in an update, once again, Bodyslam.net, Cassidy Haynes, who has really been all over this story, has added some extra details as to when this deal between Daniel Bryan and AEW came together. In an update as to when these negotiations actually began and a deal was struck between Bryan and All Elite Wrestling, Cassidy Haynes was told internally it was first discussed to bring him in around in May, just after his contract expired with the WWE. However, no discussion or negotiations were actually happening at that time. It was purely conjecture at that point. But talks and negotiations between the two sides did not actually begin until sometime over the last couple of weeks. So this is still quite a new situation. It has come together quite quickly, considering the reports are out there that he has indeed put pen to paper. It's not a case of CM Punk as just discussions. They're still trying to figure it out. So if these reports are accurate and are to be believed, it would suggest that, yes, indeed, Daniel Bryan has put pen to paper, and it was really a deal that came together over the course of the last couple of weeks, which, again, is certainly very interesting. Very, very interesting. And again, like I mentioned when it comes to CM Punk, Nobody is coming out at this point and saying, nope, not true. Nobody's coming out and saying not only no, not true, or there's nothing there, or you've got your details wrong, you've got this, you've got that wrong. Nobody's coming out and saying that. I'm sure everyone are asking questions, and look, to be honest, I bet it's very difficult to get an answer. I bet it's very difficult. I bet, if Sean Ross Sapp or whoever, Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, if anyone, Dave Meltzer, probably Meltzer might get a response considering Tony Khan and him are close. But if any of those guys reached out to AEW, I'm sure they would just, blank face, I don't know what you're talking about, don't return the call. So, but it is interesting because usually when you get a big story like this, of a level of CM Punk's coming back or a level of a Daniel Bryan signing with AEW, if it's not true, you get immediate kickback. You get people within WWE go, no, it's not true, we're speaking to Daniel Bryan. Or you get people from CM Punk's camp go, no, it's not true. Even then, of course, you're conditioned as a pro wrestling fan not to believe them, because why would you? Because everything in pro wrestling is a work, right? Where is reality? But it's a massive week, and I still kind of have to keep sort of, not pinching myself, but I keep having to kind of, again, look at things and just, it really blows my mind what a crazy news week this has been. And it's going to be, I've said this time and time again here on the channel, but it really truly is at this point. It's going to be a fascinating, absolutely fascinating second half of the year. I mean, if we're going into a situation where coming into the fall, you've got Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, both on the AEW roster, which is absolutely stacked, by the way. I mean, truly it's stacked. Some would call it bloated, but certainly it's absolutely stacked. We're going into a second half of the year where you've got those talents on the roster. That is such a big deal. And especially when, look, Monday Night Raw in July, they did the lowest viewership they've ever done. It was 1.4 million. AEW this week did over 1.1 million. You're talking 300,000 viewers between that number. Now, yes, of course, Raw did 1.9 on Monday night. But when you're getting that gap, and that gap is getting smaller and smaller, every tenth of a point counts. If CM Punk and Daniel Bryan bring in 200,000 viewers, and they might bring in more, but if they bring in 200,000 viewers, you're talking about 1.3 million. Then you're talking about a point away from Monday Night Raw at its lowest, and Raw's on the downward trajectory. AEW obviously is on the upward slope. So there is so much at play here. There is so much at play here, and we haven't even started yet. That's the exciting thing. We haven't even started, and we're already getting very excited. So it's very, very exciting. Speaking of the ratings, it's a good transition there, even though I didn't mean to. Wednesday's live Fyter Fest Night 2 edition of Dynamite reportedly drew 1.148 million viewers on TNT, according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. This was up 12% from last week's Fyter Fest Night 1 edition of Dynamite, which drew 1.025 million viewers. Now, Dynamite drew a 0.44 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic this week. That is up 10% from last week's 0.40 rating. The key 0.44 demographic rating represents around 575,000 viewers who watched the show from that key 18 to 49 demo. This is up 11% from last week's 518,000 18 to 49 viewers. Also, this is crazy, for the second week in a row, AEW Dynamite was the #1 show on cable for Wednesday nights. That is beating out very impressive viewership draws and ratings draws like cable news, like CNN. This is very impressive stuff by AEW. And Fyter Fest Night 2 drew the third most viewers in AEW history and the second most of this year. It was tied with the April 14 show for the best key demo rating of this year. The Fyter Fest Night 2 viewership was up 12% from last week, while the key 18-49 demo rating was up 10% from last week. This week's Dynamite, viewership was up 36% from the same week in 2020. The key demographic was up 37.5% from the same week of last year, which of course went head-to-head with NXT in the Wednesday night time slot. You can't tell me at this point that, and again, I know so many people during the time which Dynamite was preempted in June. Oh, Dynamite in the mud, AEW in the mud, they're in the red and they're going out of business, blah, blah, blah. They've been #1 on cable for the past 2 weeks. And again, I know people will say, well, SmackDown's regularly #1 on Friday night, and Raw sometimes is #1 on cable too, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, but they've been around for 25 years. This is a company that's only been around 2 years, and they're on the upward trajectory. If you look at the graph over time, they are going up. If you're an AEW fan or you're an AEW official, an AEW executive, how can you not be excited with all that's going on right now? This is a very exciting time for AEW, and I'm absolutely positive that everyone within AEW right now is looking at those ratings. And again, when you have these rumors about CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and possibly other names that we don't even know about at the moment, but those two names are pretty much as big as it gets in terms of free agents right now. When you have those names being thrown around, how do you not get carried away with yourself? You must be looking at it going, again, we're on an upward trajectory at the moment, and we're selling out our first ever stadium show in New York, which should easily do a better number than last or Wednesday night on TNT. Then you start to look at, that Grand Slam edition of Dynamite, if we have the right main event, say CM Punk debuts are All Out, and they say CM Punk's first match in 11 years is going to be in the main event of Grand Slam Dynamite. How does that not do arguably a record rating for AEW? They are on the upward trajectory right now, and again, it's not a WWE or AEW thing. I just think from an AEW point of view, how can you not be very excited and happy with that? So it's a very exciting time. Massive congratulations for AEW. The irony is that I thought this week's show wasn't as good as last week's. I still thought it was a very, very good show. Every show they've done since they've returned to the road, I think, has been excellent. But last week's show, I think, arguably was the best edition of Dynamite they've ever produced. And this week, again, was still good, but it wasn't as good as last week, and it did better numbers. And I think that shows how good last week's show was, because in reality, people watched that show last week, or if they watched it on DVR, or they watched the highlights, they went, man, I've got to tune in live next week. If it's going to be like that again, I'm going to tune in live, because that was spectacular. And I think they would have had the same this week. I think they would have tuned in this week and gone, man, because they left so many hooks. You've got to remember as well. So many hooks were left in for next week, whether it's Jericho's match, Nick Gage, the IWGP United States Championship match, the 5-on-5 match, all of those matches that have been announced for Fight for the Fallen this week. Again, it's all of these hooks. So it's a very, very, very exciting time for AEW right now. And the ratings continue to rise. So it'll be interesting, fascinating to see what happens next week for Fight for the Fallen when it comes to the ratings. An interesting story here is that AEW is reportedly interested in signing former WWE superstar Buddy Murphy. Now, Murphy reportedly has interest from at least 2 top promotions. It was noted previously how Impact Wrestling is making a strong play to bring Murphy in, but word now via the Wrestling Observer newsletter is that AEW also has strong interest in signing Murphy. Now, Murphy was released from his WWE contract back on June 2nd and will become a free agent when his 90-day non-compete clause expires on Tuesday, August 31st. As of right now, Murphy's first post-WWE match will take place on Saturday, September 18 for the Battleground Championship Wrestling event in Philadelphia. He's scheduled to wrestle AEW star Bryan Cage. It was reported the first week after Murphy's release that independent promotions were very interested in working with him. I mentioned before when Buddy Murphy was released that he's going to have no issue finding work, not even just top companies. The independent scene is slowly coming back now that people are places are starting to open up a little bit more, so he's going to have no issues getting booked. And if Impact and AEW want you, he doesn't have a problem. The interest will be what he thinks is the better place for him. You can easily see, I cover Impact, and he would go straight into the main event in Impact Wrestling. But from an AEW point of view, he suits the brand very, very well. He works that style, the AEW style, whatever that style is. He works that style very, very well, and I could absolutely see him figuring in there, and I could see him thriving in AEW. Would he become an AEW World Champion right away? Not really. I think he falls into that categories with your likes of your Sammy Guevara's, your Jungle Boys, etc. Maybe going after the TNT Championship first, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all, and I can certainly see him fitting that style and working with so many great athletes there, whether it is Jungle Boy, whether it is Sammy Guevara, whether it is MJF. People mention he's the Australian Kenny Omega with the whole knee strike stuff. That match would be, fantastic to promote as well for AEW. So I would probably lean to him going to AEW, but it depends what offer he gets from Impact Wrestling, I suppose, as well. Finally, yesterday it was announced that Thunder Rosa, yes, former NWA World Women's Champion Thunder Rosa, has signed with AEW officially, even though she's been with the company, appearing on Dynamite for over a year, or nearly a year at this point, but she was finally announced by AEW yesterday, on her birthday, by the way, happy birthday to Thunder Rosa, that she has been able to sign with AEW. Now, the reason why this was able to happen, because a lot of people said, well, wasn't her NWA contract meant to expire at the end of the year? Yes, it was. But the reason that Thunder Rosa was able to sign with AEW was because a buyout was reportedly orchestrated with the NWA by Tony Khan. As I mentioned, yesterday it was announced that AEW has officially signed Thunder Rosa on her 35th birthday. The news wasn't a total shock, as Thunder Rosa has been working with AEW, but the fact that she was able to sign with the company was a surprise because her NWA contract ran through the remainder of the year. Now, it was noted before that Thunder Rosa had talked about being excited over her free agency in 2022 and that her contract ran through the end of 2021. But in an update, Fightful Select, which of course is their Patreon service, be sure to check that out, has reported that a buyout of Thunder Rosa's NWA contract was worked out between both promotions. Now, there's no word right now on specifics of the buyout, talent trading, working arrangement, agreements, etc. Once we get some extra details, of course, we'll cover it here on the channel. Thunder Rosa reportedly requested her NWA release as far back as 2020, but that was rejected at the time. I would assume that's when the NWA was on hiatus, and they were granting quite a few releases at the time, James Storm, Eddie Kingston, etc. But that was rejected. The request for her to be released from her contract was rejected at the time, as the NWA was beginning to work out plans to return to doing NWA power tapings. Now, it was also noted that AEW officials, especially the president Tony Khan, are very careful about not tampering with contracts and only negotiating with talents once they're able to do so. Now, AEW reportedly wanted to play by the book with Thunder Rosa and the NWA's situation with her contract. It's been reported in the past that Khan and NWA owner Billy Corgan have often worked together directly, but it remains to be seen if they personally handled the Thunder Rosa deal. So Thunder Rosa officially now is part of the AEW roster. I mean, credit to her. I think she's a future AEW Women's World Champion. If anything, the only reason she hasn't had the belt put on her at this point is because she wasn't a full-time AEW talent. She is now. Congratulations to her. More than deserved. She's in part of the best AEW Women's match in history, which was against Britt Baker on that St. Patrick's Day edition of Dynamite. So congratulations to Thunder Rosa. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.